Wake up with a smile, and then in a while, come to lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies.
Welcome to the Libby Show, Lunch with the Ladies.
In this special episode, actress Sarah Megan Thomas joins the ladies as co-host as they have a most inspiring conversation with Tony Award winner Tonya Pinkins. You'll find out what drives this multi-talented performer, all about her movie Red Pill, and why she believes women and especially mothers need to make their voices heard. We're calling Tonya a super Libby, and once you hear what she has to say, you'll know why. So, let's get talking.
Ileana, we are so honored to have Tonya Pinkins here. Can you please tell the viewers a little bit about her?
Oh, with pleasure. Tonya Pinkins is a creative thinker and doer on overdrive. She is a Tony Award-winning actor-singer who has starred in, ready, 9 Broadway shows, including the original Caroline or Change. Her award-winning film Red Pill was recently released on TV on demand. Her writing credits include Red Pill Unmasked, her Medium essay, Why I Am Fed Up with Performative Activists from Black and White Theater Makers, and her self-help book, Get Over Yourself, How to Drop the Drama and Claim the Life You Deserve. And you may have also seen her on Scandal, Gotham, Madam Secretary, All My Children, starring as Alma on ABC's Hulu's Women of the Movement. So please join me in welcoming the one, the only, Tonya Pinkins here to the Libby Show.
Thank you, Ileana. Thank you, Beth and Masa and Suzanne for having me.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with the first question. So we call this show the Libby Show. Libby is an acronym for ladies living in their best years. So what I'm going to call you is I'm going to call you a super Libby.
Okay.
And I know how old you are, and I know you have a birthday coming up, so happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Interview Magazine named you one of the 5 grand dams of Broadway. You're an actor, a writer, producer, author, Tony Award-winning actor, singer, director, mother, painter, podcaster, and the list goes on. It doesn't stop. You continue to create and challenge yourself in the process. So on this show, we like to focus on what women our age can do and how we can grow and learn new things. And I also read that you like to inspire people, which is what this show is about. So I really want to get into some of the things that you can tell us that you've done that we can apply to our own lives. I want to start with first, how did you get started and when did you know you wanted to be an actress?
I got started in Chicago, which is where I'm from. I had a teacher in elementary school who got me involved working professionally. So from the time I was about 12 or 13, I was doing commercials and industrials. I don't think I ever wanted to be an actress, but my mother had a very hard time getting work when I was young, and acting work came to me, and work to me was always a gift. So I have had to learn how to say no to other people's work so that I could start to do my own work.
That's a good lesson for all of us.
Yeah, you've been working in show business for decades. Besides your talent, what do you attribute to that success, and what obstacles have you had to overcome in order to continually succeed in this business? That's a big question.
Well, before I answer that specifically, I want to say that I think women are the most discriminated group of people on the planet. And when I say women, I'm going to think about Dr. Yashika, what was her last name, who was just before the House Committee, and someone asked her, what is a woman? And she said, I am a woman. Okay, I am a woman. And so I am a big advocate for the sacred feminine and for sex-based rights for women with XX chromosomes. I think that mothers are an even larger discriminated against group within the woman category. And so I always want to encourage us to remember that we, and only we, are the ones who bleed and do not die. We are powerful powerful beings. So I think that just the fact that I am a woman is what has made it possible for me to survive in a very difficult industry and to overcome the obstacles that get thrown in our ways just for being what we are, because as we see, the world is trying to deprive us of our citizenship, of our humanity in this moment in time. And so I think a lot of it has to do with not saying no to myself, being willing to be stupid, wrong, humble, for the sake of going after something I want and desire, trusting that my desire is leading me on to something that is possible for me, even in the face of everything outside of me saying no. I try not to ever say no to myself.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then I just want the ladies to jump in and ask Tonya anything. I heard you on my friend Alan's show, Alan Locker, The Locker Room, and something you said on that struck me, and I think everyone here that's in the creative industry understands what you said, but I want you to speak to this. You said, everyone should be able to build a world of their imagination. Can you speak to that truth and tell us what you mean by that?
That really came for me out of making Red Pill and realizing that for most of the last century and a quarter of filmmaking, men have been building worlds, and the rest of us look at them and we measure our lives against somebody's idea of a world, and that they got to be the gods of that world. And so for me, when I was making Red Pill, I was like, oh, I'm the god of this world. Everybody should have a chance to experience that, to experience how their dreams aren't going to destroy anything. And so to encourage them to continue to act on their dreams, to imagine bigger than they could, and just build their world. Because honestly, we are all living in completely different worlds all the time anyway. And maybe if each of us built a world, a movie, a book, a piece of art, and other people got to experience it, that would be one way that we all might get to know one another better.
Yes, and you said something else on that show. You said there's a million different ideas. It's who completes them. And
Yeah.
Sarah, since
I love that.
Right, I want to hear from you. You also have made things for females. How do you feel about this?
I just love everything you said, Tonya. I think what you just said about executing on an idea, because we all have self-doubt. Every time I think I could fail, honestly. And like, I'm like, and I don't know if I can take the risk. And I think as you get older, actually, it's harder, because if you fail, or in any, how do you get up again? And I think men in our industry specifically in the past have been given more opportunities to tell their story and fail big and succeed in the end. So I just love what you said. And that would, people always ask me, like, what could I do to make my story or my film? And if she can see it, she can be it. You just have to do it. You could do it with an iPhone now. You can tell a children's story into a larger story, but just don't let yourself stop, and don't let yourself doubt yourself and think that you can't do it, because why can't you?
And yes, and I'm not even interested in doing things if there's not a chance that I might fail. I think one of the questions that Susan sent to me was, you know, what's your mantra?
Yeah.
And my mantra is brilliance lies in the moment that might not work. Brilliance lies in the moment that might not work. If you know that it's going to work, well, okay, it's going to be good. It might be great. But brilliance is about something that we haven't seen before. And that means you have to be risking failure. And so I'm always risking failure. I just assume even if I fail at it, I will have completed it and it'll be done, and it'll still be more than most other people have done. I'll have a failed book or a failed record or a failed show, but I'll have a finished show. And that's more than most people will ever have, because they're not willing to fail. I think the most successful people have failed more than anybody else. When people say, oh, but it might be bad, I'm like, well, great, make a bad one. Get that out of the way.
And Tonya, I think it's not just failure, but criticism. And I also heard you say that you made Red Pill movie, and if people don't like it, that's okay, because you want to hear it, it invoked something in them. They had something to say about it, and that was the whole point of the movie. I also heard people say, well, if no one's criticizing you about something, then you're not doing anything worthwhile.
Mhm.
So it's the same kind of thing. You just have to get out there and do it.
I
Who
also,
are the critics, by the way? Like, are the critics all men reviewing the movie? You know what I mean? Like, there's a larger conversation about the critics in our industry as well. And who's,
absolutely. But I also believe that when you are speaking truth, it polarizes. So my spiritual belief is that everything is on a spectrum. You can't tell when light turns to dark along the spectrum, that there is a spectrum, and we tend to think of the world in poles. But I think when you're in that middle place, that is a true place, you're going to bring up all the whole range of the poles. So one of the judges for myself of like, am I in my truth right now, is that I've got a whole bunch of critics and I have a whole bunch of fans, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm walking that knife edge. So that's a powerful place for me. I knew Red Pill was going to invite a lot of ire, because someone said to me yesterday, I was on a radio show and they were like, you were just too on the nose. And I was thinking about that person's taste, and I was like, yeah, because I was like, you know, somebody needs to be knocking people in the head because they don't see what's coming. You know, when I made Red Pill in 2019, people were like, so far-fetched, so far-fetched. And then after it was out, they were like, so did you make this after the January 6th insurrection? I'm like, no, this was made 2 years before, because some things just are inevitable. If you are in touch with the people around you, you can see what is coming. And so I think that's what artists do all the time. We are on the pulse of the future.
Yeah.
Tonya, you have such passion. When you were young, did someone inspire you then, and who's inspiring you now? Where is this all coming from? Because you're inspiring me. So
oh, thank you. You know, I'm in this book collection right now called My Moment that Kathy Najimy edited, and it's a bunch of women talking about a moment that kind of changed their life. And my essay is an essay that I wrote about my mother. And I wrote it a long time ago when I was in a place of like, you know, I had a bad mother and she was mentally ill. And, you know, this was this time when I stood up to her and, you know, wasn't going to lay down and get beaten again. And 20 years later, I looked at that essay and I thought, that was my moment. The moment when I said, no, I'm not going to lay down and just accept a whooping anymore. But, you know, at 50, looking back at myself at 9 years old, I was like, oh, that was the silver lining of having a mentally ill mother. That having survived my mother, and I'm not saying everybody doesn't survive a mentally ill or abusive parent, but because I survived her, when people come up against me and threaten me in the world now, I'm like, okay, what you gonna do? Because I've been through some stuff. Bring it. I survived. I'm still here. So okay, let's get to it. Let's get it out of the way. Because if I'm not going to survive it, then let me just move on to the next thing. But I'm not going to back down, because at 9, I stood up to my mother and I survived it, and I'm still here today. And so that's an inspiration to me that I could evolve to realize that something that I once thought was the worst thing that ever happened to me actually made me who I am today.
that's where the strength comes from.
Yeah, but not everyone could survive, you know, and I always wonder, why can some people survive a childhood like that and some people not? So, you know, you turn, and it's also with artists, any kind of artist, is always something burning in them or something that they've done that inspires them and pushes them forward. And that's how they make great art.
Yeah, I was thinking of the quote, reading it this week: tough times make strong people make good times make weak people, and weak people make tough times.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I've not heard that.
I think that we are a scary thing because we are so powerful. And when you get to be, I'm going to be 60 in 10 days. after you've run 4 children's lives and husbands' lives and businesses and all of that, and suddenly they're all grown up, all that energy comes back to you. And for me, it's like, oh my God, now I got all this power for me. Like I could run a country right now. What am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with it? And yeah, there are days when I'm like, there's nowhere for it to go. The world doesn't care about an old woman's thoughts and imaginations and energy. And then there are days where like, well, I'm going to do something, and maybe it is in America. Maybe I'll have to do it over there. Maybe there is some place in the world that honors and respects the power of the crone woman. And I am proud to be a crone woman.
Well, and also the power of the individual to make change, which is what you were kind of talking about. Like we as individuals can sometimes, oh, we can't do it by ourselves. We can't do it by ourselves. There's a wonderful podcast. It's on a woman in Mexico who, I forget, maybe it was in the 70s, but she single-handedly went about and got women's stories on whether or not they were going to have a kid or not. And she single-handedly changed the law of Mexico to what it is today. It's a wonderful podcast, no matter what you believe as a human being, on how an individual person can go out there and make a huge contribution to society and protect the rights of everybody.
Yeah, my dad always used to say it only takes one person to make a difference, and good and bad, actually. But yeah, it's the one person, but also collectively. So it was something else you said, Tonya, about some days we feel like, what does someone want with an almost 60-year-old person? And the other days we say we can conquer the world. Well, I want to go with the we can conquer the world, because I'm the same as you. My kids are out of the house, right, ladies? We have time. Messalina is raising her family right now. She's a young mom. Sarah has young kids, but you get to a certain age. And I mean, that's why I'm doing this show. It's because, yeah, we can. And I also say that if you look at the history of America, it seems like we're the first generation. Like when I was growing up, my mom, there were a couple of moms that worked, but this is like the first time where there's women that we were raised that we can be whatever we want to be. And then we went to college, we had careers, and now there's all of us out there that are in this middle-age range, and we're like, well, we're not just going to sit home, we're going to do something.
Oh, yes.
So kudos to everybody here, kudos. Tonya, I have another question for you, because you've done so much, you know, Tony Award, nominated, Drama Desk Awards, just so many things. And soap operas. I'm a big daytime fan. All my children. I think As the World Turns also on that one too. So what is your most memorable moment or proudest moment in your career?
And why?
Why?
We ask the tough questions here.
Well, gosh, there's so many. But probably Red Pill. I was told it couldn't be done, that I didn't have enough money and I didn't have enough time. And they say, if you don't have time, you need money. And if you don't have money, you need time. And that was from the professionals. And so, you know, I had just got it in my head that I was going to make a movie this year, because I'd spent a lot of time shadowing directors and asking people to hire me, and nobody did. And so I said, well, I'm going to hire myself. So when the professionals, 2 separate ones, said, you can't make a feature with the money and time you have, I said, well, I'm gonna make something. I don't know what it's gonna be. I got this much money, I got this much time, and we'll see what it is when it's done. And that it is a feature film, that it is on Amazon and Vudu, and it's kind of miraculous, because people make thousands of films a year that never see the light of day. And so I honestly, I don't know how I did it, except that every time there was an obstacle, I'd take to my bed, and I'm a Gemini. So one side of me would be like depressed, and the other side of me would be going, okay, well, what else can we do? 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 And it was a lot of, I mean, I failed, I messed up again and again and again and again. And I was just like, well, I'm going to finish it. Okay, I'm going to finish the film, and whether it gets distributed, I don't know, but I'm going to finish the film. At 5 editors. I mean, getting it in the can turned out to be the easiest part. Actually finishing it, it was like, I don't know how to do this. And because I didn't have money, I had to be the post-production supervisor. So I did, you know, all those scrolling jobs. I did those jobs. I had to learn how to do all of those jobs. And it's like birth, it's a baby, it's my baby. And now it's in the world and people receive it as they do, or, you know, embrace it or reject it. But that's what happens to all our babies.
Yeah. And it's so often, I mean, I work with many filmmakers as a producer. Sarah's made her own films. Ileana has made her own films. It's giving birth to your own baby. I totally understand that. And it's done and it's out, and we will put the graphics up about where everyone can see the movie. Messalina, do you have some quick lightning round questions for Tonya?
Yes. So if you could give us these answers in like one word or maybe a couple words. Our first question is, what's the best thing about being a woman of a certain age?
That the answer to everything is I want to or I don't want to.
Advice to your younger self?
Don't get married.
Favorite film?
Oh, favorite film. So many, so many, so many. Ooh, that's so hard, so hard. Seven Beauties by Lina Wertmüller, the first woman to win. I think she was the first one to be nominated for an Oscar. Yeah, Lina Wertmüller, Seven Beauties.
And the latest show you've been binging?
Well, I've been so many of them, but let's say Ozark.
Okay, good one.
Favorite play?
Right now, for colored girls, the Intezanki Shange play that's on Broadway right now, it is the way for colored girls should have always been done. It's a seminal production. It was first directed by Oz Scott, I think in the 70s, went to Broadway. But for me as a Black woman, it always felt like a dose of medicine, like, you know, it's good for you, but it's going to be a depressing evening. No. Camille Brown, who's nominated for 2 Tonys for choreography and direction, has gone in and brought to it what I know is true of women, that we don't go into self-pity too much, that we go through hard things and we pick ourselves up and we keep moving on. And this production is about women who have triumphed over the challenges that life brings them. It is funny, it is uplifting, it makes you move and dance. So it made me feel like if I were acting in the theater right now, I would want to be doing what those young women are doing. I would want to have that kind of talent.
Tonya, do you have a charity that you would like to tell us about that you support?
I do. It is called Donor Direct Action. It is a fund for women, funding women's rights activists across the globe. And what is powerful about this organization, which was founded by Jessica Neuwirth, is that 99% of the money goes directly to women. There is no staff, there is no infrastructure. You could literally find a woman, specific woman in a village, give them the money, and they would get the money to that woman. So, you know, a lot of times I've sat on boards of charities and you see that like 3% or 5% actually goes to fund the mission. Donor Direct Action, something like 95% of what goes in goes directly to the work for the people that it's for.
Excellent. We will put that on the screen. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming today. And Sarah, thank you for joining us as we spoke to Tonya. Tonya, it was an honor to speak to you. And I hope everyone walks away from the show with a little bit of inspiration. I'm going to say more than inspiration. It's more like you can do it and then go get it done, which I think is the message at any age, especially this age, because that's what the show is about. It's trying to get people this age to just get up and do something. It keeps your mind going, keeps your brain going, and it's something that's good for the world. So that's it, everyone. Every day, as I always say, find some joy, give some joy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wake up with a smile.